In the classic Civil War epic movie, Gone with the Wind, there is a very minor side character named Belle Watling. She is a woman of ill repute. She is the madam of the city of Atlanta. So as you can imagine, among the polite, respectable women of the city, she is held with particular disdain. No one wants to associate with her. And during the war, she offered her services to the hospital of Atlanta as a nurse, but of course she was flatly turned down. When she offered her money to contribute to the hospital, they refused her again because they didn't want to receive money that was earned in her business. But then she approached Melanie Wilkes. And Melanie treated her very differently from the other women, even in the midst of people telling her to leave the lady alone, don't be bothering her, go away. But she offers the money for the hospital, and instead of turning her away, Melanie, without any hint of judgment, thanked her for her generosity and gratefully accepted her contribution to the hospital. She even goes so far as to say to Belle Watling, "You are a very generous woman." And Belle, a little uncomfortable with the compliment, remembering the business she's in, simply said, "No, I'm not. I'm a Confederate, the same as everyone else." Years later, after the Civil War had finished, Belle had an opportunity to return the kindness in saving the life of Melanie's husband. And Melanie, true to form, wanted to call on Belle personally at her house the next day to thank her for her kindness in saving her husband. Well, when Belle hears this, she, who had never had any concern for the reputation of anyone who associated with her, least of all the marriages of those who associated with her, suddenly was concerned for the reputation of this proper Southern woman who had been so kind to her. And immediately when she heard that Melanie was going to come and thank her personally, she gets into her carriage under cover of darkness and goes to Melanie's house, where she waits in her carriage on the street to speak with Melanie in her carriage, telling her she should not come to her house because it wouldn't be fitting at all and could be damaging to her reputation among the women in Atlanta. And Melanie says, "What's so improper about calling on a kind woman and thank her for saving my husband's life?" And in a delightful scene, you see the two ladies in their exchange in Belle's carriage, the mutual respect they have for each other, the mutual gratitude they have for each other, not approving of Belle's profession, not looking down her nose at her as a proper Southern woman to a woman of ill repute, but truly a woman grateful for the generosity of Belle Watling in two occasions, and Belle returning a kindness to the only woman in the entire city who had ever been kind and grateful to her. I think of this scene from Gone with the Wind whenever I hear today's gospel story of another woman of ill repute caught in the very act of adultery and being brought to Jesus as a point of trapping him in a point of the law over what is to be done with a woman of that sort. The law is very clear. She's to be stoned. And they present that case to Jesus, waiting to hear him say something that they could trap him in and accuse him, and thereby discredit Jesus. And of course, we see Jesus' reaction to it. He simply is doodling in the ground, perhaps not even listening to what they're saying. He knows what this is all about. He's not really giving them the time of day. And when they insist upon it, he simply stands up and kind of blows them all off. Pretty much, whoever's without sin, go for it. And then simply goes back down, continuing his doodling on the ground. And in that one comment, they one by one go away. And in the end, Jesus, like Melanie, treats this woman not as a woman of ill repute, not as a point of the law, not as an object of gratification, but as a human being, as a woman. He doesn't approve of what she's done. It's very clear. He says, "Go and sin no more." He doesn't downplay the seriousness of what she's done. But neither does he engage in the extreme reaction that the Pharisees and the elders were trying to trap him into, stoning the woman. But rather an act of kindness in which he did not judge her, he did not condemn her, but used it as an opportunity to call her out of the sinful lifestyle that she was in and embrace something higher. Now, we don't know the identity of this woman. St. John the Evangelist, in telling us the story of the woman caught in adultery, does not give us the identity of this woman. But our Catholic tradition, associating this story with other stories in the Gospel, have identified this woman with Saint Mary Magdalene. The same woman who's identified with another penitent woman in Luke's Gospel who washes Jesus' feet with her tears and dries them with her hair as an act of penitence. The same woman who is Mary Magdalene in the Gospel of John, who anoints Jesus' feet and dries them with her hair as an act of gratitude after Christ raised her brother Lazarus from the dead. The same woman who in the Gospel of Mark is mentioned Jesus having expelled 7 demons from her. And in all 4 Gospels, the same woman who is among the women who first encountered the empty tomb on the day of the resurrection. And in 3 out of the 4 Gospels is the woman, Mary Magdalene, who is the first to proclaim, even to the apostles, that Jesus is risen. Now, if we take all these different stories, including today's Gospel, and keep in mind the tradition of the Church in identifying the same woman with all these different stories as Mary Magdalene, then we see how far a simple act of kindness can go towards someone who might otherwise be considered a sinner, an outcast, a person of ill repute. We are called to do the same. It's easy for us to blow people off because of, say, an illicit lifestyle, or because of someone's past, or because of a sin or a mistake or a misconception. We all know in society, Catholic parishes are not the only places in which malicious gossip can spread. We see it in the media. We see it in politics. We see it in small communities. We see it in big communities. And usually the bad news spreads a lot more quickly and a lot more eagerly than the good. And it's easy for people to develop opinions and ideas of people and perhaps put them on the periphery, put them on the outskirts, consider them outcasts, consider them people of ill repute. And it is just such people that our own Holy Father has reminded us time and time again, we need to go out and seek those who are lost, those on the periphery, those on the outside, and invite them in. And in this particular case, we see just how far a simple act of kindness in Christ toward this woman caught in the act of adultery, caught in a capital crime in Jewish society did. And this woman, if in fact our tradition is correct, is Mary Magdalene. She went from being a woman caught in adultery to one of the most stalwart and loyal friends of Christ, one of the most stalwart and faithful disciples of Christ, and one of the few who did not abandon him when he was arrested, but followed him even to the foot of the cross because of how he treated her, in contrast to the elders and the Pharisees. Who knows for us how far a simple act of kindness can go, especially to some who might otherwise be considered an outsider, a person of ill repute. And so let us, especially during this year of mercy called by our Holy Father, remember this example of Christ. Let us remember stories such as we see in Gone with the Wind, where an act of gratitude towards someone people are pushing away was never forgotten and resulted in, at least what I find, a very delightful scene in which there's no judgment, no approval, just a mutual respect between 2 women, both of whom exercise generosity and gratitude to each other, both of whom recognize the kindness that the other one had, the humanity in the other person. And let us do the same in imitation of Christ. And who knows how many of those lost we might find, how many souls Christ might save through us, not because of any grandiose statement, not because of any bold proclamation, but by a simple act of kindness toward those who might be considered an outcast or an outsider or a person of ill repute. Jesus tells her, go and sin no more. But in terms of his example we see today, he tells each one of us, go and do the same.